Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, look, I have to be honest with you. I am getting some serious AI fatigue.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? It feels like every time I open my browser, someone is yelling about how robots are stealing my job. Or, on the flip side,
That it's going to solve world hunger by, what, next Tuesday?
exactly.
Eh.
It's loud, it's exhausting, but we have a source today that, thankfully, seems to skip all that noise.
It really does. And I think that fatigue you're describing is exactly why this is so important right now. We're not looking at the code today. We're not, debating the singularity.
Mm-hmm.
We are looking at a text called Living Well in the Age of AI. And what's so interesting is that it treats AI not like some sci-fi thing, but like a utility, like electricity.
It's less Terminator and more, I don't know, lifestyle infrastructure.
That's the perfect way to put it. The source is basically a user manual for right now. It breaks down how these algorithms are quietly changing our daily lives.
From the moment you wake up.
Exactly. Your health, your bank account, how you unwind at the end of the day. So the mission here is to answer a really practical question.
Hmm.
Beyond all the hype, how does this stuff actually help us live longer, wealthier, more connected lives? And, what's the price of admission?
And we're not just talking about a monthly fee, but we'll get to that. I want to start with healthcare because that feels like the most visceral part of this.
Yeah.
The source talks about this shift from sick care to predicting health. Now, I've heard that phrase for years, and it usually just means, eat more kale.
Right. Some wellness buzzword.
Yeah. Does this text actually offer something concrete?
It does. It argues we're really moving from a reactive model where you treat symptoms after they show up to a predictive one. And the engine for that is something they call hyper-personalized medicine.
Okay, let's break that down. Because right now, if I have a headache, I take the same pill you take. How does AI change that?
Well, it starts with your genetics. The source gets into this field, pharmacogenomics. It's a mouthful,
But it? Yeah.
but AI can analyze your specific genetic markers to see how your body processes a drug. So your liver might metabolize something way faster than mine.
Okay.
That means the standard dose might be ineffective for you, but toxic for me. AI runs these simulations to tailor the drug and the dose to your specific biology.
So it's the end of trial and error medicine.
That's the goal. And that's just the treatment side. The monitoring side is where the source talks about wearables.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we have to stop thinking of these things as just step counters.
Right.
The text describes them as continuous clinical-grade monitors.
So they're not just logging data, they're looking for patterns.
Correct. They're watching your heart rate variability, your blood oxygen, all in real time.
Yeah.
The AI is constantly building a baseline of what's normal for you.
For me specifically.
Exactly.
Okay.
So if your heart rate does something weird at 3 in the morning, the algorithm sees that deviation immediately. It can flag early signs of things like AFib or sleep apnea weeks before you'd ever feel a symptom.
That's incredible. It also feels a little high stakes. I mean, it's one thing for my watch to tell me to stand up.
And another for to say you might be having a heart issue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. But that connects to the part on telemedicine. The source argues that AI is bridging that gap between the data and an actual doctor. It's not just a Zoom call.
Okay.
AI triage systems can analyze the data from your wearable, figure out the urgency, and get you in a virtual queue to see a specialist no matter where you live. It's about access.
And now, there was one part of this I really struggled with, the whole mental health revolution. The text talks about AI chatbots as, therapists.
Mm-hmm.
And my knee-jerk reaction is that therapy needs empathy. That's the one thing a machine just doesn't have.
And that's a totally valid skepticism. The source agrees AI can't replicate human empathy. But what it argues is that AI fills a huge gap in accessibility and pattern recognition. Well, for one, these chatbots offer a judgment-free zone 24/7. For a lot of people, especially younger people, just admitting you're struggling to another human is the biggest hurdle. A bot can feel safer.
So it's like a low barrier first step.
Right, but here's where it gets a little eerie. The source describes something called digital phenotyping.
Digital phenotyping.
Yeah, these apps don't just analyze what you type, they analyze how you type.
Oh, wow.
They track your typing speed, sentence structure, the time of day you're active. The AI can detect these tiny shifts in behavior that correlate with the start of a depressive episode, often before you even realize it yourself.
So it notices, hey, you're typing slower, you're using more negative words, and it flags it.
Exactly. And then it might nudge you with some coping strategies or suggest talking to a human professional. It's proactive mental hygiene.
That is fascinating. We will have to talk about who owns that data later, though.
Oh, definitely.
But let's pivot. If we're going to be living these longer, healthier lives, we need to pay for them. The source spends a lot of time on finance and the smarter wallet.
This is so critical because, as the text says, economic volatility is just the new normal. So the smarter wallet isn't about tracking expenses. It's about predictive cash flow.
Like a weather forecast for my bank account.
That is a great way to put it. Most budgeting apps are like a rearview mirror. They tell you what you already spent.
Right.
AI Finance looks forward. It analyzes your habits, your bills, your income, and it simulates your financial future. You can say, hey, if you buy this dinner tonight, you're going to be short on rent in 3 weeks.
That sounds a little nagging, but helpful.
It visualizes the consequences.
Okay. But the source also talks about making money, not just saving it. It uses the phrase democratized investing. What does that actually mean?
It's about making sophisticated algorithmic trading accessible to everyone. For decades, hedge funds used these high-frequency trading bots that could analyze news and data in microseconds.
Right, the Flash Boy stuff.
Exactly. That was a game for the elites. But now, the source shows how consumer-facing AI gives a version of that to the regular investor. These tools can digest thousands of earnings reports instantly to suggest portfolio changes. It levels the playing field a bit.
But I have to ask, doesn't that also introduce new risks? If everyone's using the same algorithm, doesn't that make the market weird?
It absolutely creates new kinds of volatility.
Yeah.
The source is clear on that. AI is a tool, not a crystal ball. And speaking of tools, we have to talk about how AI is changing how we earn money in the first place. The future of work.
Yeah, the gig economy chapter? It feels like the boss is becoming an algorithm.
It is. For delivery driver, the AI is the manager. It's optimizing routes, setting prices, and the source points out this tension. What's efficient for the platform isn't always what's best for the worker. But for the rest of us, the big takeaway is reskilling.
The adapt or die chapter.
In a way. But let's look at what that really means. It's not just learn to code. In fact, coding might be one of the jobs AI takes over.
So what then?
The source suggests a shift to AI literacy and human-centric skills.
Can you give me a real example? Like for a graphic designer?
Sure. A graphic designer isn't drawing every pixel anymore. They're becoming an art director for the AI. They're learning how to write the perfect prompt to get the image they need. The job becomes less about execution and more about orchestration.
So we become the conductors of the orchestra, not the violin players.
That's the perfect metaphor. And that efficiency mindset spreads from our jobs to our homes. Let's talk about the smart home.
Okay, please tell me we're past the smart fridge that tweets at you. I feel like that was the promise for 10 years and nobody wanted it.
Thankfully, yes. The source moves way beyond those gimmicks. It talks about ambient computing. The tech just disappears into the background.
And does what?
The best example is energy efficiency. An AI thermostat doesn't just hold the temperature. It learns the thermal properties of your house, how fast it heats up, how well it's insulated. It then combines that with local weather data and real-time energy prices. So it might pre-cool your house at 2 p.m. when solar is cheap, so it can just coast through the expensive peak hours at 6 p.m.
So it's playing the energy market for me automatically.
Exactly. It lowers your bill and your carbon footprint without you ever touching a thing. And then you have security.
Right. The source distinguished between just a motion sensor and pattern recognition.
Yes. A dumb sensor goes off if a cat walks by. An AI security system learns the rhythm of your house. It knows you leave at 8 a.m., the dog goes out at noon. It builds a model of what's normal.
So if a window opens at 3 a.m., it knows that's an anomaly.
Instantly. It's context aware. And if we zoom out from the house to the city, our cars are going to be talking to the traffic lights.
This is that V2I, vehicle to infrastructure thing.
It's fascinating. The grid knows how many cars are approaching an intersection, and it adjusts the light timing on the fly to prevent a traffic jam before it even starts. The source argues this could give us back hours of our lives.
Which gives us more time for leisure and connection. I have to say, the gaming part of this section really got me excited. The idea of dynamic gaming.
It's all about getting into that flow state. You know, that feeling where a game is just hard enough to be engaging, but not so hard. It's frustrating.
The sweet spot.
Right. Game designers are always chasing that. The Force explains how AI watches how you play, your reaction time, your success rate. If you're struggling, it might make the enemies a little less aggressive. If you're crushing it, it ramps up the difficulty, creates a personalized difficulty curve just for you.
That's very cool. But when we get to social connection, the source gets a little darker. It calls it the algorithm of friendship.
This is the clearest double-edged sword.
Yeah.
On the one hand, AI helps you find your tribe. If you're into restoring 17th century clocks, the algorithm can connect you with the 5 other people in the world who share that passion.
Which is great. But
But it creates the echo chamber effect. The algorithm's only goal is engagement. It learns what you agree with, and it just feeds you more and more of that.
so you stop seeing other points of view.
Exactly. The source warns that it narrows our world. We think we're seeing everything, but we're really just looking in a mirror that the AI has built for us.
And that leads perfectly into the final and maybe most important section, the ethical fine print. We've talked about all these amazing benefits, but the text is very clear that the cost is privacy.
It's the privacy trade-off. There's no way around it. For the AI to predict a heart attack, it needs your biological data. For the smart home to save you money, it needs your schedule. You have to surrender this intimacy for the convenience.
And it's not just someone is watching me, it's what happens if that data is used against me. The text brought up algorithmic bias and this phrase invisible redlining. That really stuck with me.
It's a terrifying concept.
You
We
bet.
think of math as being neutral, right? But AI models are trained on historical data, and our history is full of human bias.
Yeah.
So if an AI is trained on mortgage data from the last 50 years, it might learn that people from certain zip codes, often minority neighborhoods, were rejected more often. The AI then replicates that bias.
So it denies a loan to a perfectly qualified person today just because of their zip code.
And it hides that discrimination inside a black box, calling it risk assessment. You can't even point to a person who made the decision. It institutionalizes the bias.
Wow.
And that gets to the final point on the human element. The source says that AI is incredible at processing data, but it is totally incapable of context, empathy, or moral judgment.
So when you put this all together, the health, the money, the ethical traps, what's the final takeaway? How do we live well in this new world?
The main theme really is agency. We can't be passive passengers on this ride. The source frames AI as this incredibly powerful partner, but one that needs constant active supervision.
We have to stay in the driver's seat.
Exactly. You have to be the one checking the privacy settings. You have to be the one to realize you're in an echo chamber and consciously step outside of it. We have to learn to use the tools, not let the tools use us.
I think that's the key. It's about being intentional.
It is. And if I could just leave you with one final thought, it connects back to that echo chamber idea.
Go for it.
We talked about how these algorithms curate everything to fit our preferences perfectly. They smooth out all the friction. But we have to ask ourselves, if everything we see and hear is curated to fit us perfectly, are we actually expanding our world?
Or are we just building a really comfortable prison?
Or a very comfortable mirror? Are we growing, or are we just watching a reflection of who we already are repeated back to us forever?
That is a haunting thought. Are we exploring or just stagnating in comfort?
It's the question we all have to answer.
Well, on that note, we're going to wrap it up. This has been a huge deep dive. Remember, the tool is only as good as the user. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and maybe go check the permissions on your phone right now. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.